Now to Eastern Europe, where Lithuania is boosting its border security in the face of a joint Russian and Belarusian military drill. The exercises in Belarus are called Zapad, meaning West, and will be the first time Russia will be testing out its latest ballistic missile. With fear of Russian aggression on the rise, neighboring Lithuania and its military aren't taking any chances.
Patrols like these will be far more frequent than usual over the coming days. These soldiers have received extra training to prepare for potential border transgressions during the first Russian-Belarusian military drills since the start of the war in Ukraine in 2022.
Now Russia is much more seriously taken as a possible aggressor. Well, we preparing for a very broad range of provocations. Those might be use of migrants, aggressive actions at the border against border guards by migrants, when the migrants are being instructed by Belarusian to be very aggressive, to use different tools to attack border guards. Those might be also use of drones.
Like drills of the past, thousands of Russian and Belarusian soldiers will test military equipment, such as tanks, drones and machine guns. But this time, they'll also be trained to use Russia's new hypersonic, nuclear-capable ballistic missile Oreshnik. The exercises will bring back painful memories for many Lithuanians. Lithuania knows firsthand what a Russian invasion would mean. Until 1991, the country was under Russian occupation as part of the Soviet Union. Russia's invasion of Ukraine has raised fears Lithuania could be next. The country has more than doubled its defence spending since 2021 to over 5% of GDP next year. Experts say the upcoming drills could also raise the threat level in the long run.
Russia perceives us as countries, more as territories that should be under Kremlin's direct or indirect control. What we are going to be looking for is certainly whether those troops that are going to be in Belarus or around Belarus are going to be staying there after the exercise, whether Russia is really increasing its presence on the Belarusian soil, including the infrastructure, and possibly preparing for some scenarios in 2, 5, 7 or 10 years.
The inhabitants of these Lithuanian villages next to the border are somehow used to such drills that have been happening regularly since 2009. But to some of them, this year's exercises feel more frightening than ever.
We all fear that this war will soon come to us. We are afraid, really afraid.
Nothing bad has happened where we are. It's nice and peaceful here.
With Russia clearly showing an expansionist agenda, these fears are unlikely to dissipate anytime soon. Fears that this border could at some point become Lithuania's first line of defence.
Earlier, I spoke with DW's Yuri Resheto from the border. He told me more about what people there think about these exercises.
Well, Christian, the people here in Lithuania, where I'm right now, and especially here on the border right behind me with Belarus, the border, do not expect anything good. All border crossings in Lithuania are neighboring Latvia have been closed. No one here is really afraid, but all the authorities and the army are on alert and know that these military exercises are intended to prepare for a potential war against the West, against Western neighbors, and that means Lithuania in particular. For the first time since the attack on Ukraine, Belarus and Russia are conducting the joint military exercise Zapad in Ukraine. People remember 2021, Christine, when Russian troops were stationed in Belarus as part of the last Zapad exercise as well for the later invasion of Ukraine. The official goal is to deploy armed forces to defend Russia and Belarus. According to Russian sources, however, Zapad will also test the use of Oreshnik missiles. Oreshnik missiles could be equipped with nuclear warheads.
So on the other side of where you are is Belarus, Yuri. What role is the country playing in these military drills?
Well, Russia and Belarus cooperate very closely on economic and military levels. Since the beginning of the war against Ukraine, Russia has permanently stationed troops in Belarus. The Zapad military exercise is therefore also considered a central element of Russian-Belarusian military cooperation. Belarus is not officially providing a troop contingent for Russia's war in Ukraine. Despite this, increasing militarization is taking place in Belarus. There is a draft law in Belarus according to which an attack on Russia could also lead to the declaration of martial law in Belarus and therefore also to Belarusian troops entering the war.
You just give us more of a sense of what Russia hopes to achieve by teaming its forces with those of its neighbor Belarus.
Well, primarily the maneuver serves to strengthen cooperation between Belarusian and Russian military forces. However, drills are also a demonstration of power. Drills involving new weapon systems, especially nuclear weapon systems, are intended as a message to NATO. Russian President Putin obviously wants to show that despite the war in Ukraine, his army, Russian army, is capable of responding right on NATO's borders. Geographically, Belarus is very important to Russia. Here in the Baltic states, the main concern is the small 65-kilometer-long so-called Suwalki Gap, which borders Belarus. It's the shortest route between Belarus and the Russian enclave of Kaliningrad. It also marks the border between Lithuania and Poland. And this Suwalki corridor or gap is considered a possible Russian point of attack against NATO. If Russia were to gain control of this corridor, of this gap, the Baltic states would be cut off.
And Yuri, how are the Baltic states, including, of course, Lithuania, reacting to these Zapad military exercises, these joint military exercises between Russia and Belarus?
Well, Baltic states are named members of NATO. Neighboring Poland is also a member of NATO, is responding with its largest military exercise this year called Iron Defender 25. More than 30,000 soldiers are participating from Poland and other NATO countries. The German armed forces, Bundeswehr, are currently engaged in another major NATO exercise called Quadriga. So together with armed forces from 13 other nations, they are practicing the protection of the Baltic Sea region under conditions of crisis and war. And this is a direct response to these military drills in Belarus.
All right, that's DW's Yuri Reshetto reporting there for us. Thank you, Yuri.